Hey guys. So we're going to continue reading. I think we've read the first chapter, but I'm just going to reread it because it's been quite a long time. And so I want to make sure that you remember what was going on. So I hope you're all being safe and you're healthy and you're happy, and just wanted to know, or wanted you to know, that I am so sad not to be with you, but we'll be safe and we'll be okay. So, chapter 1, Sweetness and Light. On the first Saturday of every month, Pearl Petal and her great aunt Gladys ate breakfast together at the Buttonville Diner. It was a tradition of sorts, a couple of nice gals out on the town. Gladys always said, though sometimes she couldn't remember Pearl's name, because the elderly woman insisted on bringing her two wiener dogs. It took an extra long time to walk the half blocks from their building to the diner, which annoyed Pearl, who liked to walk as fast as possible. But the wieners stopped to piddle on everything, and to smell everything, and to bark at everything. Pearl vowed to never, ever own wiener dogs. When they finally reached the diner and stepped through the front door, Pearl's impatience melted. Her nostrils inhaled the scent of cinnamon rolls warming under the heating lamp and bacon sizzling on the grill. Yum! Let's eat. Come along, Sweetness and Light, Gladys said as she pulled her dogs inside. The wiener dogs waddled across the checkered linoleum and barked at the waitress. Then they barked at Mr. Bumfrickle, who was sitting at a table by himself, eating a bowl of oatmeal and reading the newspaper with a magnifying glass. They also barked at Mrs. B, Pearl's teacher from last year, who sat at the counter eating a waffle. No one told Gladys that her dogs weren't allowed inside. Buttonville was one of those small towns where everyone knew everyone else. Thus, it was well known that wherever Gladys went, so too went her annoying little yappers. Here's the picture of the annoying little yappers. The waitress, whose name was Lucy, pulled a pair of high chairs over to Gladys's favorite booth. Pearl strapped each dog into a chair, securing the trays so the dogs could rest their little front paws. The dogs stared at the door and growled softly, as if they were expecting an invasion. Will you be having the usual? Lucy asked as she filled Gladys's mug with coffee. Usual for me, Gladys replied. Me too, Pearl said. Hey, Lionel, Lucy yelled. They're having the usual. You got it, Lionel yelled back. He was the fry cook, and his apron was covered in greasy stains. As Lucy began clearing another table, Gladys opened her purse and took out her knitting needles. Even though her fingers were knotted with arthritis, she was always working on a project. Almost everything she wore that morning had been knitted by her own two hands. Her pink vest, her green skirt, her orange hair bow. She even made stuff for her dogs. Don't you love their breakfast hats? She asked Pearl. Super cute, Pearl said with a forced smile. The hats were white with yellow blobs on top, just like fried eggs. Because Sweetness and Light were shaped like sausages, the theme kind of made sense. Gladys sipped her coffee, then her needles began to click and clack. How's everything with you, dear? This was a big question because things with Pearl were, well, extraordinary. All summer long, she'd been working as an apprentice to Dr. Emerald Wu, veterinarian for imaginary creatures. Thus far, she'd met a dragon hatchling, a Sasquatch, a lake monster, a leprechaun, a black dragon, a rain dragon, a unicorn king, a unicorn fowl, a kelpie, some satyrs, a royal griffin, and a man who was actually a shape-shifting cat. Do you remember his name? But weeks had passed and Pearl hadn't met any new creatures, nor had her fellow apprentice Ben Silverstein. And though she hated to admit it, she'd grown a bit bored with scrubbing scales off the floors. dusting fur from the walls, and changing various litter boxes. There'd also been lots of Sasquatch grooming. Because the Sasquatch's fur was prone to tangles and mats, it needed brushing almost every day. And it had recently become a fan of yoga, which meant that Pearl had to learn poses such as downward facing dog and warrior two. But while she and Ben had gone about their mundane tasks, they'd wondered about things. How come no calls had come from the imaginary world? Why had no trips been taken? And would they meet another creature? Everything with me is fine, Pearl told Great Aunt. I really like working at Dr. Wu's worm hospital. Worm hospital? Mr. Bumfrickle mumbled. Who has ever heard of a worm hospital? He turned the page of his newspaper. At that sound, the wiener dogs perked up their ears and barked. Mr. Bumfrickle scowled at them. Can't a man eat in peace? Gladys soothed her dogs, then took another sip of coffee. How is that nice friend of yours? Oh dear, I can't remember his name. You mean Ben Silverstein? He's fine. Pearl tapped her finger on the table. Where was Ben this morning? She looked out the window. Nothing much had happened on Main Street. Across the way, Mr. Wanamaker, the barber, was sitting outside his shop, waiting for customers. Up the street, her parents were inside the dollar store, also hoping for customers. Ever since the old button factory closed, it had been tough to make a living in Buttonville. Even the cinema had trouble staying open and showing movies only on Friday nights and the occasional matinee. The current movie was an old-timey black and white thing. Invasion of the Killer Bees, special showing 4 p.m. this Sunday. Pearl wondered if she and Ben would go see the movie. Killer Bees could be interesting, and the popcorn was pretty good, even though the cinema used buttered flavored instead of real butter. Zzzt! A bug flew around the wiener dogs. They started barking like crazy. Then it flew straight at Pearl. Go away, she said, swatting at it with her hand. I hope you're not talking to me, Lucy said with a smile as she set 2 plates on the table. The usual. Thanks. Pearl swatted at the bug one more time before it flew away. Pearl's stomach grumbled with anticipation as she grabbed her fork. She ordered the number 6 on the menu, which was 2 buttermilk pancakes, 2 strips of bacon, and 2 scrambled eggs well done, because runny eggs were disgusting. Her great aunt Gladys had ordered the number 8, a mound of mushy corned beef hash from the senior menu, which meant it cost less. Gladys set her knitting needles aside and spooned some hash onto the wiener dog's high chair trays. While Sweetness and Light snorted and snuffed to the food, Pearl made a sandwich with her pancakes. Zzzt! The bug was back. It zipped around the waitress's head. Oh, that looks like that nasty hornet, Lucy said. I hate those things. It whipped around Mrs. B's head. I don't think that's a hornet, she said as she ducked. It's too big. It swooped past Mr. Bumfrickle. You got bugs in this restaurant, he complained. I'm going to call the health department. Now, don't be getting upset over one little bug, Lucy said. It'll go away. But the bug didn't go away. It flew around Pearl's head, then hovered over the syrup bottle. The dogs kept on barking. Aunt Gladys leaned over and snatched the newspapers from Mr. Bumfrickle, rolled it up, aimed, and whap! Corned beef hash scattered across the table. You missed, Pearl reported. Here, let me try. She grabbed the newspaper. All it would take was a quick whack, and she'd be able to enjoy her breakfast. That pancake sandwich was going to be delicious. The bug flew around Aunt Gladys, then dive-bombed Pearl's plate, grabbing a little piece of syrup-covered pancake. With its treat in hand, the bug landed on the windowsill. Pearl raised her arm, aimed, and... The little creature turned its face and looked up at her. Pearl gasped and dropped the newspaper. Mrs. B was right. That thing was not a hornet. All right, tomorrow we'll read chapter 2, Queen Bee. What do you think that little bug is if it's not a hornet? Make your guesses.